Good morning, good morning. Every time I look into the screen, I can tell how much closer I'm getting to getting a haircut that I'm not needing a haircut that I'm not going to get. It is day 25 here in quarantine in Northern California. It's arduous and not. I thought to myself, in my own childhood in the 1960s, but I'm sure before that, like we've been living in a generation of opulence and abundance, unprecedented. But life was just a lot slower, and you stayed where you were, and not too much happened, and there was a drudgery if you worked on a farm. So here we are in comfort, but just not necessarily going anywhere or doing anything, and it's stabilizing in a way, and shocking and confusing if you follow the news or if you know somebody who's gotten the virus. We found this morning that I found out this morning that Molly, one of my students, her daughter, tested negative, so that was good. One of my favorite singers for The Breath, Pink, tested positive. Before I read you this little thing, I also just wanted to share that I'm going through all of my music from the last 30 years. It's a project that's about 10 years overdue to just see what's there, both digitally and otherwise. And I found this. I have 3 of them. And they are like CDs that I made of breath work. But the first one I ever made, which is in here somewhere, in I think it was 1993, CDs were just starting to come out, and I paid a guy a whopping $100 to come over with this special machine he had. He was in the music business, and he could burn me a CD. And so instead of changing cassettes or making a cassette mix, he could make me a CD of my breath music. And I still have that CD, but now I have 3 of these. Eventually I had a 5 carousel thing of CDs. So I kind of have to go through all this on top of a hard drive of thousands of pieces of music. It's been fascinating. So being creative on top of everything. I see Dawn's on there this morning. She's being creative. Excuse me. That's dusty. I don't think I moved in here 10 years ago. I probably haven't looked at that in 10 years. So I thought I would read a little something from the last 5 pages of my book. I took the main premises and ideas of the book and gave what I thought were some of the main keys at the end of the book. So I'm going to talk about acceptance. Comes after play the long game. Practice acceptance. Acceptance is not synonymous with passivity, collapse, subjugation, or submission. To accept is to take an action, assertive, aware, and engaged stance. So acceptance is a stance in relationship to that which you are encountering, but one in which you are open to the value of and growth potential in what you're experiencing. If you want to find the value of a problem, you have to accept that it's there for a reason. Obviously, the more people listen to me talk, the more you're going to hear that. This doesn't mean you have to approve or condone of what is happening, and it certainly doesn't mean you should have no boundaries. If someone tries to violate you or your moral code, you can set boundaries to resist that violation while still having an underlying acceptance that what is happening, and that you'll work with it because it's part of your life. Even if you become aware that you can't accept what is happening, you can then try to accept that you can't accept it. Any degree of acceptance without collapse moves you in the direction of change. And I lost the page after, in the midst of all these other pages. Well, so I'm going to accept that. It's so simple. It's so simple, but easily forgotten in the day-to-day of things, and when we get emotional and touched. The point of life isn't that you shouldn't have anything going on. You should always have places to practice acceptance. So life needs to happen, and then you need to practice acceptance. So there's absolutely there's nothing wrong with being triggered or upset or disturbed in some way. If you can understand that the work is to see the value of the problem and to practice acceptance, then there really isn't any reason to look at these things as anything other than arisings that are helping you to practice acceptance. Acceptance, ultimately, if you have that internally, an allowance, not a negation of, not a transcendent disconnecting, not a dissociation, but an actual acceptance with the awareness that you're staying in relationship to things, you really have nothing to fear, and you're only making a stronger and greater connection to both your creator, but your own potential and your own life purpose. So if anybody would like to chime in, ask something or say something, now's the time. But I'll give you your homework today is just that we have states of peace and simplicity, but today, if in just at any moment you can notice your equilibrium is being disturbed, which of course it is, because we're flowing. We as beings, we flow. So our emotional states, our entire state is changing all the time. So just pick something that comes up and see if you can find some place of acceptance inside it. You can always go back to your breath. Maybe you can accept that you can't accept it. Some place where you can say, okay, this is happening, therefore I'm creating it on some level because it's within me. Your own experience internally is yours. You are the owner of it. Don't outsource your feelings to the external world. So just find something that is happening today and accept it. Christina, this has literally happened to me today. Triggered and not knowing how to accept the situation. Yeah. So the first thing you can do is accept that you are helpless. Accept that you don't know or don't feel skillful or what's the word? You're not feeling capable to adapt or work with or execute something in relationship to that situation. So the first thing you have to do is just stop and go back to your breath and say, okay, I'm helpless. I can't. And in this way, I think prayer for some people gets seen in a pejorative light because it's related to religion and God is related to religion. But a prayer, in effect, is like an act of concentration, and it's an internal concentration. So you can just say, okay, I'm helpless. I don't know what to do. I need guidance. And then just wait. And it might not happen right away. Most problems, most upsets are not something that needs to be solved in the situation. It's only the internal part that we're in a hurry to solve. If something can't be solved, I mean, my breath teacher said this, if it can't be solved now, it's not a problem. Meaning, if you can't do anything about it now, then don't. So what you're really struggling with is how you feel. So you can start by saying, I don't accept how I feel. And Chrissy, just from having spoken to you many times, that's the thing that you struggle with, is just being able, like, you've had trauma and you've had these things that have happened for you, and they're unprocessed. On one hand, you have to do your work and figure out how to create relationship with it, but at the same time, at the beginning of that is the letting go, and the part of you that is going to say, okay, I don't know how to do this, and I accept that. Because you have to start somewhere. We all have to start somewhere. And we're always at the beginning somewhere in the journey. And I think that real creativity is that even as you acquire skill, you're always, in some sense, still in the beginning, because you're always in the present moment. Does anybody else want to chime in before I head off and go back to my music? All right. I think I have Daniel this afternoon for about 15 minutes to discuss rage, the good old topic of rage. I'll be here every day. Send me your questions. At some point, I might figure out how to screen share here on Facebook. All right. Love to you all. Bye.